Let's get to the Iron Bowl here. Auburn and Alabama. Auburn coming off one of the worst performances in the history of the conference. Just flat out. Hugh, I think they're going to be better in this game against Alabama than they were against New Mexico State, which is a very strange sentence to say out loud. But they were absolutely demolished by New Mexico State, albeit a very well-coached New Mexico State team with Jerry Kill. Still completely unacceptable for Hugh Freeze. His entire first season can be defined by this win if they were to somehow pull off a win. But they have not been very – and the only way Auburn has been competitive in the two big games that we saw them play kind of close-ish, Georgia and Ole Miss, were because they created turnovers and short fields and got into situations where they could score touchdowns in quick ways. I don't know how they're going to score points or move the football. I don't know how they stop Jalen Milroe. To me, this is one of those moments where Nick Saban, I think, has some extra stuff in the bag to try to slit Hugh Freeze's throat on national television.
I think Auburn better have some extra stuff in the bag to win this game, because to your point, offensively, they have been so inconsistent in the passing game. It's been quarterback misfires, offensive line problems, receivers dropping passes. Are they just going to be able to line up and run Jarquez Hunter against this defense?
Nope.
I think it's going to be tough. So I think, to me, the only way Auburn wins this game is it's at Auburn. Weird stuff happens. Maybe they get an interception return for a touchdown. There's a fluky special teams touchdown, because this game might be pretty ugly all around, pretty low scoring. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a sluggish offensive day for both teams. But at the most basic level, I mean, I think that if you trust one offense to find a way to win, it's Jalen Milroe in Alabama. I also think the alarming thing to me for Auburn, and this also gets at another storyline for this week, is New Mexico State just went in there and pushed them around. It wasn't fluky. It wasn't like that New Mexico State had a couple fluky turnovers. No, they just went in there and pushed them around. But also the flip side of that is it's a week before playing Alabama. Do some of these teams spend 2 weeks getting ready?
Absolutely.
So I would expect a much more focused and just a better overall effort from Auburn in this one, which is why I think if you're Alabama, don't put too much stock into what happened last week.
So I think you're right. The formula is the Hugh Freeze and the Iron Bowl formula combined. That's what I'm going to call it. The Freeze Iron Bowl formula, which is Freeze beat Alabama one time by using 5 turnovers inside Alabama's territory to win the game for Ole Miss. We've already seen that. It didn't work against Georgia. It didn't work against Ole Miss, but they challenged Georgia and Ole Miss through those two situations. And we've seen Brian Harsin almost beat Bryce Young.
Yeah,
which if you, again, just think about that sentence, doesn't make any sense. And Bryce Young had to be truly spectacular in the final drive of that game to beat Brian Harsin and Auburn. So you're right. It's it's one of the greatest rivalries in the game for a reason. 364 days of bragging rights at church, at the shopping store, at the gas station, in high school, everywhere. It's what makes all of these games across the country so great. And it's why you give Auburn even just a 5% chance of winning the game, because on paper, this is a 34-3 type of game, 27-7. They cannot stop Jalen Milroe, and I don't know how they're going to run the football against Alabama's front seven. But you know what? It's the Iron Bowl, so who knows? Roll Tide.
Auburn is 2-1 in the last 3 games in this series at Auburn, and you mentioned the only loss, which was the Brian Harsin Tank Bigsby game. Who knows how that one would have turned out if that one play had been a little different. But it's absent a sort of couple miracles here, couple turnovers by Alabama, just a sloppy game. I think Alabama wins kind of a lower scoring, ugly contest and gets to the SEC championship game with everything on the line.
I think they do too, and I think they can beat Georgia in that game. And I think it's not out of the question that this is the last Iron Bowl Nick Saban coaches.
How's that for a closer? Spicy close of the game.
I don't think it's out of the question.